Hello folks, Scott here with the new My Monthly Hero December 2022 kit. Of course, it comes in these 8x10 zip top envelopes, and it looks like we are reaching for the stars. We are heading directly into outer space, following in the footsteps of the Artemis mission to the moon. So what do we got here? Let's start with our 8x10 inch stamp set. We've got all sorts of images. Looks like there's about 10 sentiments on here. Planets. We've got these little... Hero Arts called them Space Cadets. I did not. Hero Arts called them Space Cadets. We got 4 little Space Cadets, a ladder, a moon, a crescent moon. I think this is a mailbox. I'm not sure. We've got stars and moon, a lovely sun, 10 sentiments, stars, clouds. Looks like we get to color this month. We get 15 coordinating frame cuts that cut out all of those images. I think it does absolutely every one. The moon and the crescent and the sun and all of our space cadets, even that cloudy mailbox. Is that what that is? We also get a new cling stamp. This is a celestial cling stamp. This is really, really interesting. Notice that you are stamping the negative. So the white is not stamped. Everything else is stamped. Finely detailed. Look at that rubber stamp. That should be lots of fun to stamp with. It's just a little bit larger than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That will certainly cover up a whole background for an A2 card. And 4 sheets of pitch black cardstock, my favorite cardstock in the world. This is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. We get 4 pieces of that, and a rose gold pigment mini ink pad. I wonder if that shows up on black cardstock. Here's a piece of cheapo black cardstock. Ooh, baby. Shows up on black absolutely beautifully. That's everything in our kit this month. Looks like we're going to get to do some coloring. Looks like we can work on some galaxy backgrounds in addition to this lovely celestial cling stamp. So let's put on our spacesuits and start our countdown. And here we have my 10 cards, all on white card bases, all A2 cards. Now, when I first saw this kit, I was just a little hesitant, thinking that, oh no, I'm going to have to make 10 galaxy backgrounds. But upon further examination and the simple fact that we have this great kind of galactic cling stamp as well, I found that there were some creative ways to get around doing galaxy after galaxy after galaxy. I do try to always use every stamp in a kit, and since there's 10 sentiments in this stamp set, I decided I would try and use all 10 of those sentiments. Now, I don't always do this, but I thought stamping and coloring and die cutting all of the images in the stamp set would be a good way to work my way into the theme this month. Everything here is stamped on Bristol Smooth cardstock with intense black ink and colored with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. As usual, the dies included with the kit cut out all of the images precisely. I also did some preliminary backgrounds before I started working on the specific cards. I did stamp that cling stamp on some black cardstock from my stash using the rose gold mini ink pad. That worked better than I thought. You'll see that. I also did a double panel of a watercolor galaxy using my Daniel Smith watercolors and some Black Soot Distress Oxide ink. I did try a new medium for my splatter stars this month. I got this Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay White India ink. Really, really nice. I'm loving this ink. No thinning down needed. Just dip in a paintbrush, wipe off the excess, and spatter away. Remember, the smaller the brush, the finer the spatter. I also realized that one of the easiest ways to create a galaxy background was to just spatter some stars on some black cardstock. This pitch black cardstock is perfect for this. We have this sentiment that says, Fly me to the moon. Well, I figure if we're going to the moon and it's our moon, then the night sky can just be black and white. There aren't any colorful stellar nurseries or beautiful nebula in our immediate vicinity, so simple stars is it. So for our first card, we have fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Isn't that fun? And that's just simple white spatter on our black cardstock. That's a perfectly nice galaxy, great star field out there. I spattered a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel of that pitch black cardstock with the stars using that Bombay India ink. I let that dry and split the panel in half vertically. So this is 2 1/8 inches wide. Now I stamped this star cluster on the front of an A2 card base using intense black ink, embossed that with clear embossing powder, and colored them with my Zig markers. I glued the star panel to the center of the card front, added some black glitter peel-offs to the edges just to finish those edges, and added the 2 die-cut images with foam tape. The sentiment is stamped on a scrap of black cardstock with unicorn white ink and embossed with white embossing powder and glued to the card front. Now with her arm up in the air, it almost looks like she's riding a horse or a bucking bronco or something. You can almost hear her saying, "Yee-haw!" Anybody who knows what movie that's from. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I like this scene going on and off our galaxy background. I think that's fun. And we have so many star sentiments. Stellar day, you're a star. Reach for the stars. So many star sentiments here. Not terribly descriptive, but hey, the sun is a star. So for card number 2, we have You're a Star. I think this may be my favorite stamp in this whole stamp set. I tell you, I love that sun stamp. So I cut a panel of white cardstock with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I stenciled the sunburst rays with lemon drop and creamsicle reactive inks. I stamped the sentiment with intense black ink and embossed it with some clear embossing powder. I added 2 thin mats of black and yellow behind our main panel and glued those down to an A2 card base. Lastly, I added the die-cut sun with foam tape. I love that stamp. You're a star. I'll use that sun a lot, I'm sure. Now, we also have this ladder stamp that's just clouds. There's no real space on this. It's very cloud-centric, I guess you could call it. So I guess we don't really need a galaxy for that stamp either. So my next card here is Reach for the Stars, using that ladder amongst the clouds. I cut a panel of white cardstock to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches and embossed that with an old Doris Clouds embossing folder. This is actually still available out there. I'll put a link to 3 or 4 of them, I think, are on Amazon. I'll put a link down below. I was really pleased with how well that embossing folder clouds matched up with the clouds on the stamp. I thought that worked very, very nicely. I glued that panel to an A2 panel of Hero Hue's Periwinkle cardstock and down to a white card base. The sentiment fit perfectly between these 2 embossed clouds, and I stamped that in intense black ink, and again, I used clear embossing powder, and I stamped, colored, and die-cut a few extra stars on strings that I attached to the top with foam tape and then glue where the strings come to the end of the card. Finally, I attached the ladder to the card front with small pieces of foam tape. I think that's delightful. I don't think you need anybody climbing on that ladder. Reach for the stars. That's your ladder. You go climb that ladder. Okay, now to our little characters, our space cadets, as far as what Hero Arts call them. I guess I can't avoid a galaxy background forever. Have a stellar day with 2 of our space cadets, and this is one of my watercolored galaxies for you. I did this, of course, with my Daniel Smith watercolors, and then got some really nice darkness in there with some Distress Oxide Black Soot ink. And I did add some extra sparkle to this with my sheer shimmer spritz. I think you can see that there. Nice sparkle and nice spatter. Very pleased with that galaxy background. So I die cut that background to 3 1/4 inches by 4.5 inches. I added a thin black mat to the back. I stamped the sentiment using unicorn white ink and embossed that with white embossing powder. That shows up on that galaxy background very nicely. I glued the background to an A2 card base at a kind of a weightless angle there, jaunty, and added the 2 space cadets with foam tape. Now, they're either collecting stars or they're distributing stars, but either way, I'm sure that they're having a stellar day. Okay, now I'll show you what that cling stamp and that rose gold Hero Hues pigment ink looks like. Next card is, I'm wishing you the best. And look at that gray shine on that. It shows up good here. I am really impressed with all of the delicate line work in that stamp. I had to stamp this probably 3 or 4 times to get as even layer as I did, but I kind of think that's worth it. I trimmed that rose gold background to 4 inches by 5 1/4 and glued it to a white A2 card base. I trimmed the other half of my black spattered cardstock to 1 3/4 inches wide and glued that to the center of the card front. That one has some sparkle on it, some shimmer spritz on it. I did add some more black glitter peel-offs to the edges of our little black galaxy there. I stamped the sentiment on a scrap of black cardstock with unicorn white ink and embossed it with white embossing powder. I trimmed it to size and added 3 more layers behind, so it's a nice little chunky sentiment. I glued that flat to the card front and mounted the shooting star with foam tape. Starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might. Have this wish, I wish tonight. I'm wishing you the best. Okay, that big background cling stamp is really, really nice. Let's try adding some color to that. And now we have, no sentiment on this, but that lovely cling stamp done in Splash, Blue Hawaii, and Purple Galaxy reactive ink. And I took those ink pads directly to the stamp and then just buffed the edges a little bit with a blending foam, stamped it, went to the Blue Hawaii, stamped it, buffed the edges, went to the Purple Galaxy, stamped it, buffed the edges, probably half a dozen times or so. Really, really love that background. I am liking this cling stamp more and more every time I use it. I did add some shimmer spritz to the background for a little extra sparkle. I just can't resist. I trimmed that panel down to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches and added a thin black mat behind that and glued those down to an A2 white card base. I attached our balloon boy with foam tape, and I just couldn't bring myself to cover up any more of that fun, colorful background, so I stamped the sentiment on the inside of the card using intense black ink. Congratulations. This fellow seems the most likely candidate for a congrats card. Congratulations. I would have gotten you some balloons, but he took them all. I'm loving that cling stamp. There's one stamp in our stamp set that took me a little while to wrap my head around. That's this one. It's a cloud mailbox. Really? I guess if it's a cloud mailbox, it's not in outer space, so we don't have to do another galaxy background. For my next card here, we have sending encouragement. There is a sending encouragement stamp in this kit, along with Happy Mail as well. That seems like it just has to go with that cloud mailbox. So since we're not in outer space, I decided to ink blend some clouds on a scrap of white cardstock. I used Splash ink and the My Favorite Things mini cloud stencil. I trimmed a panel of that to 2¼ inches by 4¼ inches, and I stamped the sentiment, again using Splash Reactive ink, and embossed that with some clear embossing powder. Now on a white card base, I stamped the Happy Mail sentiment with Splash Reactive ink repeatedly down the left side of the card front. I glued the cloud panel to the upper middle of the card and added some blue metallic cardstock strips to the edges. I thought those added a nice shine to the front of this card. I stamped, colored, and die cut 2 more of the clouds, the big star on a string without the string, and our balloon boy without the balloons on Bristol Smooth cardstock, and colored them with my Zig markers. Now the clouds are glued flat to the card front. The star is glued into our cadet's hand, and the cloud mailbox and the cadet are mounted with foam tape. I tried really hard to justify these stamps and sentiments and create a usable card within the parameters of this kit. I don't think I've seen anybody else use that cloud mailbox stamp yet. I think this works pretty good. Sending encouragement. Now, that card used up 2 of our sentiments, so that means I've used up 8 sentiments. I only have 2 more sentiments to go. Now, I had this idea on how to use that crescent moon stamp. This was suggested, of course, by the DreamWorks logo. We've got "You're Out of This World" with our little space cadet girl writing on the crescent moon. I think she looks adorable sitting there. I stamped her and the extra shooting star again on Bristol Smooth cardstock, colored them with my Zig markers, die cut them both, and cut her away from the star that she was sitting on, and nestled her into the crescent moon. This is the second half of my watercolor galaxy with sparkles. There are sparkles on this, attached to a little bit thicker black mat and glued to a white card base. Nice and straight, no weightlessness here. Now, I performed a little stamp surgery and cut the "You're" away from "You're a Star" and stamped that with "Out of This World" to get this complete sentiment of "You're Out of This World." I stamped that on a scrap of black cardstock using unicorn white ink and white embossing powder. After I trimmed that compound sentiment to size, I added 2 more layers of black cardstock behind and glued the stacked sentiment to the card front. All of the die cuts are mounted with foam tape. I really like just about everything about this card. I'm not quite sure why "Out of This World" didn't have a subject, but I think this works, and the "You're" actually matches the world as far as the font goes. "You're out of this world." She gets to ride all the best rides. Okay, 1 more sentiment to go. I've done 2 black on white galaxies. I've done 2 watercolor galaxies. I've done 2 cling stamp galaxies. Let's use that cling stamp one more time in its most basic iteration, black on white. And here we have "Make a Wish." Of course, there's some sheer shimmer spritz on that background as well. So I did stamp that cling stamp with intense black ink on some white cardstock. I trimmed it to 3¾ inches by 5 inches, matted that on some yellow cardstock, and glued that to a white A2 card base. I stamped our extra cadet on some Bristol Smooth cardstock and colored her with my Zig markers and die cut her out. I stamped and embossed the sentiment on a scrap of white cardstock, trimmed it to size, and glued that flat to the card front. I attached our cadet with some foam tape, and I did add a "Happy Birthday" sentiment on the inside. "Make a wish, happy birthday." And I also added some yellow gems to some of the white dots on the front for a little extra sparkle, a little extra color. I love how the star is shining on her helmet, shining on her suit there. And I really like this simple black, white, and yellow color scheme. Make a wish, happy birthday. Now I have used every single stamp and every single die in this kit. However, after making this birthday card, it occurred to me that the cadet holding the planet balloons would make for a terrific birthday card too. So for my last card, I thought I'd give a try to these really simple shadow box pop-up card. So I've got everything prepared here. I went ahead and stamped, colored and die cut our little space cadet with his balloons. I have a background here. This is just that Altenew Galaxy washi tape that I have attached to just a piece of white cardstock. I burnish that down, that holds it good. This is going to be my window. This is 5.5 by 7 1/4. So that's 3 inches larger. So that would be 4 1/4 by 5.5. And this is 7 1/4 by 5.5. We're going to score that and then cut a window in that. I have my sentiment ready to go. This is a stacked sentiment from an old Lawn Fawn Happy Birthday to You scripty die. I die cut that 3 times from 110-pound cardstock, glued those together, and then on top I glued some of this fun shiny white cardstock on top. This is the size of our window. Let's start scoring. So this is just our regular zigzag pop-up on the sides of the card. So we're going to score at every 1/2 inch. So because these fold back and forth, I'm going to score the 1/2 inch. This is a piece of that great pitch black cardstock that came in our kit. I'm scoring at 1/2 inch, and I'm scoring at 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to flip it around. Now this is just to get my scores going in the correct direction. You know, you're supposed to fold against your score, and since these go back and forth, this is a terribly anal thing to do, but it makes me happy. So I'm doing these 4 at 1/2 inch and 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to turn my cardstock over and then do the 1 inch score marks from the other side. And then theoretically, everything folds properly. This pitch black cardstock is really, really thick. So I think this will give us all the support we need. And I think scoring it in the right direction will help keep it from cracking and help it fold nicely. This one would fold away. So this is the front of our card here. So we want to center our cutout in the middle of that. About right. Let's run this through our die cutting machine. And there we have our window cut. Let's fold this. Our first 2 score lines go away from our window. So we'll fold that down. Use our bone folder to crease that nicely. We'll do the other side the same. Fold that away from the front. Score that nicely. Now the next one scores the opposite way, so we're folding a zigzag. See, that's just behind the window. I like that. This is a Hero Arts nesting rectangle die. The measurements on this is 3 inches by 4 1/4. We fold the other side on a zigzag as well. And then our last side folds back on itself. And on the other side as well, reinforce those folds. And that's going to give us our pop-up right there. So we're going to attach our guy to the back of this front frame. I think I'm going to use just a piece of acetate. I think I'm going to cut that just less than 1/2 inch. And I kind of only want to connect it up in the corner. So if he's going to be this here, we could attach that right behind the moon there. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to use some double-sided tape for this. This is my 1/4 inch squang. And I think I saw that go across the balloons right above those stars, across that planet, shall we say. We'll peel up our double-sided tape and we'll add our acetate right along that piece. Now, will that hold us in the back? Yes, it will, just like that. Take another piece of double-sided tape. We'll put it down here behind the frame, and we'll put another piece at the top of the frame here. we do want to leave room for our sentiment to float across. So we'll go right there with that. I think that's going to be nice right there. We'll peel off our liner paper, stick this side down right there, peel off our liner paper over here, stick that side down, and then to keep anything getting stuck to the back of that double-sided tape, I'm just going to put another piece over the top of it and not remove the backing paper. Another piece over the top of this here. That should certainly hold our acetate in beautifully. And there we have our little space guy floating through the skies. I do have a card base ready to go. I have already printed this with my inside sentiment to my favorite space cadet. So this card will read, "Happy birthday to my favorite space cadet." When Hero Arts used Space Cadet in its description of this kit, I couldn't resist it doing at least one Space Cadet card. I know many Space Cadets in my life. This is just illustrating my little piggyback printing process. This is a 110-pound cardstock. And if you have a printer that won't take a sheet of this, if this is too thick, you can often get it to go through your printer by using this piggyback method. So I printed it on just a plain sheet of paper and then taped my cardstock on top of that. So this is the leading edge that goes into the printer, and then printed that again. It comes out brilliantly. I can get a 110-pound cardstock to go through my printer with no problem using that piggyback method. So let's score this. Again, you want to score away from your score mark, 4 1/4. Fold this shut, reinforce that seam, and now we're going to glue these flaps onto the edges of the front of our card. Look at how much dimension that gives. Oh, baby! I am going to use some liquid glue for this. I'll reach for my Hero Arts Precision Glue. Add some glue on this tab, a decent amount. And then we'll line that up with the left side of the card. Got enough wiggle room there to move it around if you need. Press down to the left side of the card. I'm not worried about excess glue here because we're going to put our background in the back. That's going to cover up our little tabs as well. Let's glue up the other side, and this will attach to the other side of the card base, and it should pretty much just fit. I'm going to give that just a little extra press with my bone folder on both sides. Now, what do you think? I could use another acetate behind him, but I kind of like the fact that he wobbles a little bit in there. And then our background piece should slide in right behind, cover up those tabs. Look at that. Let's get that into place. Fits just perfectly. And then we have our happy birthday that's going to go down here. Just need a little bit of glue on the ends. I'll dot my fingers along those just so there's not way too much glue that goes oozing out everywhere. Hold that in place. And that's our happy birthday pop-up shadow card to my favorite space cadet. Joel has got to be careful. He may get this for his next birthday. Well, and that covers all 10 of my cards using the My Monthly Hero December 2022 kit. Though I originally thought this kit was fairly limited in its variety, I came to realize that there's actually a lot that can be done with almost everything that's in this kit. I truly love that sun stamp, and the cadet with balloons is perfect for any high-flying birthday. The cling stamp is a unique combination of clouds and stars and galaxies, perfect for a wide range of backgrounds. We have a little bit of everything here, from very simple to fairly complicated, and not too many galaxies. This kit is still available at Hero Arts. If you like what you see and I was possibly able to inspire some galactic imagination, I suggest grabbing a kit for yourself before they're all sold out. If you do go shopping at Hero Arts, please use my links in the description down below. That helps support this page and keeps the crafty goodness coming your way. Thank you so very much for sharing your time and another year with me here. It is so supremely appreciated. I'm truly grateful for all your support and encouragement. Please take a moment to like me, list me, pin me, post me, friend me, follow me, share me with all of your crafty friends. Remember, don't run with scissors. I wish you and yours a happy and healthy holiday season and a new year filled with light and laughter. Thanks for everything, folks. Happy New Year! For more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.